Hi everyone, my name's Liz. I'm a registered dietitian and I work here at Community Servings in the Policy Department. Welcome to Learning Kitchen Live. We're so glad to have you tuning in today. And just remember, you can always find today's recipe in the comments section. So today I have a fun recipe to make for springtime. We are making zucchini, herb, potato, egg baskets. And I really like to make this recipe in spring because when you take them out of the oven, they look a lot like little nests. So it's a really fun dish to prepare for celebrations in the springtime or Easter brunch. I also really like recipes that only use minimal equipment and not a lot of ingredients. And this is definitely one of those recipes for you to have in your back pocket. So let's go ahead and get started. I've already set my oven to 400 degrees. And we're going to get started first with making our potato baskets. And so today I'm actually getting some help using frozen shredded hash browns. It's really nice to have some ingredients like this. It's going to save me a lot of time from having to shred potatoes. And so it's nice to have some ingredients like this either in your pantry or in your freezer. So we'll go ahead and measure out about 1.5 to 2 cups of these. Using the frozen hash browns actually ends up being better for this particular recipe too, just because it tends to be a little bit lower in the moisture content than if you were shredding a fresh potato. So that is, you can usually find these obviously in your freezer section. Sometimes they have hash browns that are already shredded in the refrigerated section of your grocery store, so just be on the lookout for where you can find it. When you are using pre-prepared items like this, I always take a look at the nutrition facts label and also the ingredient list because I want to make sure I'm looking for a product that doesn't have a lot of extra ingredients or high in sodium. And this one really is just pretty much potatoes and a little bit of salt, so I know I won't have to add any extra salt in this recipe. Next, we're going to add in some shredded zucchini to boost the fiber content and add a nice green, spring green. Zucchini do have quite a bit of moisture in them, so I have gone ahead and squeezed this out a little bit, and this is about 1 small to medium zucchini. And I'm going to start sort of incorporating this with our potatoes. You might think, oh, I'm kind of trying to watch my starchy carbs. Maybe I could only make these baskets out of the shredded zucchini, but you really do need the structure that the potato provides. So if you don't like zucchini, you could certainly think about using some shredded beets or some shredded carrots. Those are a nice substitute. And I like this recipe too, particularly if you have kiddos or grandkids at home. It's a great way to get some veggies in a breakfast item. So nice way to sneak that in if they're not big fans of breakfast. Or vegetables with their breakfast. And then last, we're just going to add some herbs. I've got some fresh parsley that I'm going to add in, also some chives. If you don't have those on hand or don't like those herbs in particular, that's not a problem. Just use what you have on hand or what you might like at home. I think thyme would be a really nice addition to this as well. Or you could use even dried herbs that you have at home too. So I'm just mixing these together because I want a nice kind of distribution of my zucchini and my potatoes. Right. And then we'll start to make our cups. So I have a 12-cup muffin tin that I'm using. I want to give it a good spray with some cooking spray because I want this to release well. If you only have the 6-cup molds at home, that's not a problem either. You'll just be able to make 2 batches, which is nice. All right. So now that those are sprayed, a 1/4 cup should do for each tin. So I'm going to just start measuring that out and filling in my cups. And what I want to do is push it down to fill the bottom, but also push it up the sides, because what's going to happen is as this cooks, the sides are going to sort of shrink down. So the higher you can get it before you put it in the oven, the better basket you'll have. So I really like this recipe because I can get some extra help from using shredded potatoes. And believe it or not, these shredded potatoes are actually an example of a processed food, which I know processed foods are sometimes a 4-letter word. We often think of them as a bad thing because when we talk about them, we are often talking about those highly processed or ultra-processed foods. But processed foods actually can be a good thing. It can help keep us safe. For example, we will pasteurize milk to kill any bacteria to keep us safe. And all a processed food is just really one that's been changed from its natural state. So things like canning, pasteurizing, freezing, those are all techniques to processed foods. And then there can be a range of processing from highly processed or from minimally processed all the way to highly or ultra processed foods. So things like frozen fruits and vegetables, for example, are a minimally processed food. They're picked at their peak and frozen to seal in all their nutrients. Canned beans and tuna are examples of a healthy, minimally processed food. It saves you time when you use those. And so often on Learning Kitchen Live, you'll see us using and incorporating the canned foods or frozen foods because they are healthful options that only will save you time, but they also are pretty happy for your wallet. They're a nice, more affordable preparation of a food product. Finish filling these in. So you do want to try to avoid the highly processed or ultra processed foods. That's because those are high in sodium, saturated fat, added sugars, things like sodas, candies, stuff like that, cookies, chips. And they also tend to have negative impacts on your health. But you can choose healthful, minimally processed foods to incorporate in your diet. And so while we do encourage using whole foods, when you do lean on these minimally processed foods, just take a look like I did. Take a look at the ingredient list, take a look at the nutrition facts label, make sure you're mostly getting a short ingredient list and items that are going to be low in extra sugar, extra saturated fat, and salt so that you can make sure you're making a healthful choice. All right, so these are looking pretty good. I've got them all filled and into the oven. They'll go for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, for the sake of time, I went ahead and made a small batch using my 6-cup muffin tin. And now we get to add the eggs. So you can see that they have shrunk down a little bit, which is just fine. You could kind of try to remold them a little bit before you add them in the oven, but that's not necessary. And adding our eggs is going to be a nice way to add in some extra protein. And those will probably fill up even above the nest that you've made, and that's just fine too. That won't be a problem as it cooks. But as I said, the eggs are a nice source of protein. And as you're looking at this, you might be thinking, wow, that's a great grab-and-go breakfast item, which it certainly can be. You just want to think about storing them safely in your refrigerator. If you like to have items like this that are cold on the go, that's just fine. You could also heat it up in your microwave before you head out, but the eggs will be pretty well cooked through. This also does make well ahead of time, so you could make, if you're going to say make this for a celebration or a brunch and you want it to be warm when your guests come over, you could go ahead and make the little cups about an hour in advance, and then when your guests arrive, you could go ahead and add the eggs, place it in your oven, and then they'll be warm when you're ready to eat. Shell in there. So that's it. These are also going to go into the oven. This goes in the oven for just about 12 to 15 minutes. And it really all depends on how long they cook, depends on how you like your eggs. So if you prefer eggs that are a little runnier yolk or maybe a little jammy yolk, I would do it on the shorter amount of time. For me, 13 minutes seems to be the perfect amount of time. But if you like your egg cooked all the way through, or if you happen to have a compromised immune system, it really is best to be sure that you're cooking these all the way through. Into the oven these will go. And we have some that have already been made to give you an idea of what these look like as they're done. Because I sprayed my muffin tin, they come out really easily just when I lift it out with a knife. You can see the little basket that your eggs are sitting in. About 2 of these is a great serving size. And this would pair really nicely with a fruit salad or a green salad for either a nice brunch or a healthy breakfast. But regardless of what you serve them with, or if you have them on the grab-and-go or something warm as a celebration, I hope you'll give this recipe a try. And we'll see you next time on Learning Kitchen Live.